Hi there. Today at the StreetStrider workshop, I'm going to show you how to take off a wheel and actually change a steering knuckle. If you wanted to change the bearings in the steering knuckle, if you wanted to change the brakes inside the hub, I'll show you how to disassemble one of these. When you start doing this, in order to take off the front wheels, set the StreetStrider up on a small box so that the wheels are lifted off the ground. Okay? We're going to use the tools that we have in the toolkit. We're going to take the 8mm Allen wrench and this 19mm socket, and we're going to use that as a socket wrench to get the axle off. Okay, so that goes on here. We use that as a way of taking the axle off. I've already loosened it a little bit. The axle should come off. Okay, so the axle bolt has been unscrewed and I can pull that out. I can take the wheel off. All right, you can see the surface in here that the drum brakes touch. Here's the brake shoes right here. If you needed to put on new shoes, you can take this off. There's a little clip here. You can put on new shoes and then have a new brake system. Okay, we're going to go a little further than this and we're going to take off a steering knuckle. The next screw we have to take out is this little 5mm screw right there. And we're going to unscrew that. And that takes the brake plate then off of the steering knuckle. Okay, there's our 5mm screw. And now you can see there's our brake plate. Okay, the brake cable is still attached from the adjuster screw right down to where the end barrel piece is, fits onto this brake lever arm. We can just let that sit off to the side. The next thing we have to take off is this rod end out here. That's a 12mm wrench right there, and this is a 13 underneath. We have 12s that are supplied with the toolkit, and I use a little adjustable here to actually loosen the 13. Okay, and then I can take my 12, get this all the way off, like that, loosen it up. All right, now my outboard steering rod end is off. Okay, the next thing we need is we need the 6mm here and the 17mm open end wrench right there. The 17mm goes on the bottom underneath that nut, and the 6mm goes up top on the top of the kingpin bolt. We're going to loosen that. Take the 17mm nut off, lift out our kingpin bolt with a washer right there, and the steering knuckle comes right off. The steering knuckle has a set of bearings that can be changed after you ride this for several thousand hours. And to reverse the process, you would just take new bearings, put them in here. These get pushed out with a screwdriver from either side, put the new bearings in, and then we can put the new steering knuckle right back on and reassemble. So the steering knuckle goes on, right there. The kingpin bolt goes right through the center of that. The 17mm nut goes underneath, and we're going to tighten that up with a 6mm hex here and the 17mm underneath. And I'm going to tighten this up until it snugs up, but I want to make sure that this rotates freely. Okay, I'm going to tighten it just a little bit more than that. I want a little bit of resistance in there, so I know my bearings are being pushed against the edge. So it's nice, smooth that way. All right, now I'm going to put my rod end through this way. I'm going to put my 13mm nut up underneath there. Hold the 13mm nut with the adjustable wrench. Use the 12mm here and tighten this up. And this one you want to tighten all the way. Because, all right, nice and tight there. Okay, so we have this all put together. Steering knuckles back in, kingpin bolts here. We have our outboard rod end attached. Now we're going to put the brake plate back on, and we want to make sure that the cable runs underneath this linkage arm here and around this way, and that cable then sort of goes down underneath, and that sits there like that. And then we put this 5mm screw back in here to hold that bracket. Okay, now I put that all the way in, finger tight, okay, give it a little bit of play there. And now we're going to put the wheel up here. We're going to slide that back on. And what I want to call your attention to is there's a little spacer right here, and you have to make sure that that spacer's there at all times, okay? That's what holds the hub in a proper position. Okay, so we're going to put the wheel back on this way. We're going to put the axle bolt through and screw that back in again. Again, we'll use our 19mm socket and finish the job with that. All right, and what I want to call your attention to here is that as we finish up tightening this, we're going to tighten it and make sure that this wheel spins freely. If it gets too tight, which means I'm pushing on the bearings and it slows down, then I'm just going to back this off about a quarter turn, just a little bit, and then make sure the wheel spins freely. All right, so everything's done. We took the wheel off, we changed the steering knuckle. If we wanted to change the bearings on the steering knuckle, we could. Put the bearings and the steering knuckle back on, reattach the rod end out here, and then the axle in here. The last thing we have to do is now tighten up that little 5mm screw that's right there. So I'm going to slide my Allen wrench through this way, and I'm going to tighten that up like that. We're all done. Okay? It's really a simple little chore if you ever needed to do that. All right? See you next time at the StreetStrider Workshop.